that Magnus Carlsen has, and that's because he dominates all of the squares positionally. Total positional domination leads to scenarios where you can miss mate and still be completely winning.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're just tuning in, Magnus missed a forced mate in a previous game. Again, also still won. And here, he misses queen d8, queen h4, but also still wins, right? But it is an instructive lesson of obstacle bishops and the problems therein. Your bishop was basically a bystander on the dark squares if you're Gukesh. Magnus shows how to convert those things, and he's got a 4-game lead to go with it.
Man, and it's weird because the games are pretty close. The middle games are complicated. I wouldn't say that he's blowing Gukesh out of the water in any of these games. He's just getting the upper hand in critical moments. I mean, he's just outplaying him from dynamically balanced middle games. And that's maybe even more impressive.
No, and we've both said the same thing, and it's not to necessarily disparage Magnus, but he hasn't been that impressive today, honestly. But I think in the time scrambles, he's just been that much sharper, has a little more experience, I think, than Gukesh does. And it kind of sucks to say that if you're Gukesh, because Magnus maybe hasn't even found his form yet. Stella hasn't even gotten her groove back yet, and she's up 4 games.
But that's what makes, athletes like Magnus so impressive. When somebody at that level has an all-star performance, anybody can come up with a dominant victory. The real question is, how do you play when you're in mediocre form? Can you still dominate even when you're missing a lot of stuff you normally would see? Yep. And the answer thus far has been a resounding yes, but the match is very far from over. We still have 2 more segments. And a 4-point lead, it's not a 10-point lead. Gukesh can still, 1 victory, and we're singing a different tune.
Yep. You've got to start somewhere. What do they say? 1 game at a time. Focus on what you can control. How many sports cliches can we fit in? It is what it is.
Right, exactly.
It is what it is. Do what you can here. Just
bring your A game just down the stretch.
all the things, right? Last game of the year, Dan. Can't hold anything back now. Anyway, this
Team
is
effort.
But okay, we're gonna keep. But all right, you get it. The point is, Gukesh, he does have a pretty decent position here as black. I mean, I know the eval bar favors white a little bit, but this is certainly a playable one. The problem is, we called for it a couple games ago, and I'm gonna call for it again. He needs to stop the bleeding. He needs to get another point on the board. If you're just tuning in, first of all, where have you been? Gukesh won the second game in fine fashion, by the way. It was an awesome game, and the score was tied 1-1, but Magnus has been on a tear ever since. And I think if you're Gukesh, forget about the score, hold, play a great game, get a draw against the champ, and then you can build on that.
Yeah, you just need to not lose. And once again, I'm worried, just given Magnus's body language as he kind of sits back, his hoodie is on. He's in sinister Magnus mode right now. And that bishop on d5 is such a monster. And it's going to be replaced by a monster even if you capture it, which I hate about pieces like that. You take it, Magnus might even take with the e-pawn, Danny, and organize some serious pressure on this e5 pawn. So Magnus preparing a4, a5 on the queen side.
Yep. Protected pass pawns are a problem, and we see it now. The pawn on c4 protects the d5 pawn. For those who don't speak chess terminology yet, that's called a protected passer. Here comes a5, prying open another file for the rook on b1. This is a position that Magnus has, he's massaged a few of these before toward a victory, and this is a tough one for black.
Gukesh has to create counterplay on the king side, and he's got to do it in short order because Magnus is already, the enemies are at the gate on the queen side. So maybe a move like queen f6 to prepare f4 and simultaneously protect b6. Now, white could be the one to play f4 there. So, let's not forget that the e5 pawn is also a weakness.
Yeah.
And look at the clock. Magnus playing with so much confidence this game.
I was going to say, I mean, I want to play like h5 if I'm black and sacrifice the b pawn to get h4. You have to do things that are more practical in nature, I think, if you're going to mix it up while you're getting ground down. But he goes e4, and I think Magnus is just going to win the b pawn. I think he's going to.
Magnus is totally not buying this.
Yeah, he's going to take on b6 twice, and he'll take back on d3 after the rooks are exchanged and the protected pass d pawn. Daryl's going to run up the board, touchdown on d8.
And Gukesh is trying to, stir things up on the king side. The issue is that he's basically out of pieces. I think Magnus could even just play d takes e4. Oh, I guess the idea for Gukesh is after a takes b6,
E3?
Maybe at some point there's like queen c7 forking the 2 pawns. Or
I thought it was maybe
e3.
Sure. I think
which
E3
is why
might
I would take on
spice it
e4.
up. Okay. Yeah,
E3
happens. You're At least you're giving yourself a chance, right? You're saying there's a chance.
No, there definitely is a chance if black plays e3. Maybe even g takes f4 is a move here. Because, your king on g1 is perfectly safe. Black, again, is out of pieces to attack with. Magnus is spoiled for choice here. He plays rook takes e4, also possible.
Yeah, getting pieces off the board makes sense when your king is about to be opened up. Makes you feel a little more safe. Magnus now has 2 passed pawns in the center, the E and D pawns for good measure. Oh, man.
AB.
What?
But now AB.
Queen c7, not right away, right? Pawn takes, obviously.
Yeah, first you take.
First you take. If rook b6, queen c7. That's a fork.
Oh, there's queen b3 there.
Mm.
So rook b6, maybe there's queen c3. One of those types of moves could be really nasty for white.
Yeah.
Magnus, that f file is open, but he's so good at squeezing wins out of these types of positions.
I was going to say, I don't know that Magnus will do this because he squeezes these positions well. Not quite engine-like, but as close as any human probably is. But let's not underestimate that this is a blunderable position for Magnus. That's the point, is that open king, the open f file, this is a position where that eval bar could swing on a single move if Magnus isn't careful.
No question about it, which is why he puts his queen on the most solid square on the board, where it simultaneously protects e4, protects this important f3 square, the f2 square, and to add insult to injury for Gukesh, e5 is now a massive threat, which might necessitate a passive move like rook e8.
Yeah. Well, then white might grab the f-file, right? We talk about open file commodities, supply and demand. You give up the f-file, is white just going to switch rook f1?
Or the b-pawn.
Or the b-pawn.
Ugh. I don't see it here for Gukesh. I don't see it. Maybe rook f3. I don't know. Yeah, actually, rook f3 doesn't look too bad. He just resigns.
Oh, wow.
Oh,